What would happen if all sensory information were removed from the world? What is a non-sensory world like? Thought experiments are amazing. We can do extraordinary things, such as abolishing sensory information from the world and then analyzing the nature of this non-sensory world we have constructed in our minds. Actually, there was a time when philosophers and scientists gave great thought to this idea, and it's disastrous that the intellectual world has stopped contemplating it. The big question was, what does sensory information have to do with atoms moving in a void? Are we to imagine atoms with colors and tastes and smells and noises and which are physically touchable? Well, are some atoms blue and others red and still others green? No one believes that atoms themselves have colors. Color is generated elsewhere, by other means. But if we can remove color from atoms, we can surely remove all sensory information from them, and thus have non-sensory atoms. What is a non-sensory atom? It can only be one thing: pure math. The atomists of ancient Greece and then of early modern Europe imagined a non-sensory world of atoms in themselves, with the sensory world as a mysterious add-on. It was not at all obvious how a reality supposedly made of atoms moving in void, the basic atomic picture, could lead to the subjective sensory experience of the world. It's still not obvious. It never will be. In Berkeley, J.O. Urmson wrote, "These atoms were considered to be of many different shapes and sizes, solid, indestructible and in motion. But if we ask with what other properties God endowed the atoms, the answer will be, none. Hot and cold are appearance, sweet and bitter are appearance, color is appearance. In reality there are the atoms in the void," said Democritus in one of the few surviving fragments of his scientific writings, and with this the 17th century scientists entirely agreed. The corpuscularian philosophy is a theory of pure mechanism. All of this is quite remarkable and drastically different to how ordinary people think about the world. You can see that Democritus the atomist has divided the world into reality and appearance. Reality is atoms moving in void, and this is non-sensory. Appearance is hot and cold, sweet and bitter, and color. We thus have an objective world of atoms without appearance, and a subjective world of how we experience the atomic world, how it appears to us. This problem of things in themselves, noumena, and things as they appear, phenomena, never goes away. Most people, obeying common sense, believe that the world really is how it seems to us. No intellectual has ever believed that. And it's actually extremely disturbing to consider that the world in itself is nothing like how it appears to us. This became a decisive issue for Kant, who claimed that we could not possibly know the world in itself and objects in themselves, and we were stuck purely with knowledge of appearances. We could know the phenomenal world but not the noumenal world. The atomists of the modern world believed that we could know the noumenal world amazingly well, via mechanics. Do you see what the vast problem is here? It's where we locate reality. Modern atomists dismissed phenomenal appearances while believing in real mechanics concerning real atoms, with no appearances. Kant wondered if this mechanical world of atoms really existed and decided that it too could be assigned to the world of appearances. And this is the whole point about genius thinking. You need to take what seems obvious to others and then give it a radical new twist that no one else has ever thought of. The atomists imagined a real objective world with knowable properties, concerned with mechanics, and a subjective world experienced by the mind. They focused on the mechanics and didn't bother with the subjective experiences. Science behaves more or less the same way today. Science believes in the reality of a non-sensory world that can be addressed via abstract mathematics, and it doesn't much care about subjective appearances and experiences. Kant's revolution was to relocate mechanics from the world to the mind that observed and experienced the world. So, the mind imposed mechanics on the world, but the world in itself was devoid of mechanics. Or, rather, we simply had no knowledge at all of what the world was like in the absence of our mind's interpretation of it. I.e., Kant claimed that if you removed mind from the equation, you lost all knowledge of the world, whereas the first thing atomists did was to remove mind from the world and imagine it purely as a system of mechanical objects. Obviously, the scientific approach has been staggeringly successful, while Kantian philosophy is fascinating, but important only to intellectuals. With ontological mathematics, a whole new worldview is presented. Now, all that exists is mind, and mind can be defined exactly via mathematics. The collection of all minds mathematically generates the objective world, with objective mathematical properties, which the individual minds then subjectively experience, via their individual mathematical interpretations of the mathematical world. Each mind has a subjective element that is absent from the objective world, which is to say that no one else can subjectively experience the world in the same way as you, even though you are experiencing exactly the same things in the objective world. In effect, scientists located mathematics in the world, which was deemed a real, knowable thing independent of the mind, while Kant removed mathematics from the world and relocated it to the mind experiencing the world, rendering the world in itself mathematics-free and unknowable. Math gets rid of the world as an independent entity, and makes minds purely mathematical, which then mathematically generate the world they experience. So, math agrees with Kant that mathematics is located in the mind. In fact, it goes much further and states that the mind is nothing but math, and there isn't anything else. However, math totally contradicts Kant's views on the knowability of the world. The world isn't an unknowable mystery. Rather, it is the mathematical product of the mathematical minds and inherits their mathematical knowability. There is nothing mysterious and unknowable about it. Kant's intellectual revolution was astonishing, moving math out of the world into the mind, and math's intellectual revolution is even more astonishing, moving the world into the mind, and thus bringing it fully into mathematical knowledge and understanding. Kant imagined the world separate from the mind. That was his disastrous error, and is why Kant wasn't a true idealist. He was a transcendental idealist, believing in a world transcended by the mind. The likes of Fichte, Schelling, Hegel and Schopenhauer were true idealists. They all got rid of any world independent of the mind. Math agrees with that worldview. The world must be a construct of mind. For Kant, full grasp of the mind would reveal nothing about the world, separate from the mind. For true idealists, full knowledge of the mind would necessarily lead to full knowledge of the world, since the mind creates the world. With math idealism, all of this becomes fully knowable via analytic mathematics. Other idealists, lacking the essential mathematics, treated the question metaphysically and couldn't compete with mathematical science. Math, by contrast, competes with science mathematically and can totally replace it. Metaphysical idealism could not beat mathematical science. Mathematical idealism can absolutely beat mathematical science, while inheriting all of the intellectual power of metaphysical idealism. Math delivers the unique combination of metaphysical and mathematical power. Science has physical and mathematical power, but has no capacity to address the mind in metaphysics. Science can't offer ultimate explanations, which require mathematical metaphysics.